All right.
Sweet.
There they are. So we're here with True Duelist and Alex on his phone, and a giant Nova as a second place prize for our man Zach. And they're here to give us a bit of a deck profile. So obviously we have finalist, winner, top 8, and overall great performance, everyone. So huge congrats, first of all. And yeah, let's jump into it.
All right, well, perfect. First thing we got to do is pull out the custom playmat Ryan made, who is
nice.
actually commissions for this design. So if you want any character here, he will make it for you. Awesome. And that includes the mat. Just saying, this is wonderful. Absolutely love it. I mean, I've won every, like, Tulsa I won with it, Pro Tour I topped with it, here I topped with it. I mean, this is just good luck. So if you guys want good luck with your playmats, hit them up. First thing,
brought you by.
Yes. First thing, other than that, is just the absolutely cute sleeves that we have to feature here. Just absolutely adorable. I mean, who sits aside from this and says, "I'm going to beat this player"? I think that was actually.
I think that's the reason why I got knocked out in top 8.
Yeah,
my sleeves
that's
were
the
very
thing.
vanilla, just
that's
standard
the
black
thing.
dragon.
So like they see
definitely
this,
a blunder.
And, you know, I try to just make conversation, and I think they just stopped trying to beat me. I think that's like probably most of why I've gotten here.
Right.
But the other reason I've gotten here is Phantasmal Paradise. So this is of course the first card you include in any yellow deck. 4 of this. And 4 Cathedral. This is essentially the yellow engine. This is what makes yellow just one of the best decks in the game.
So what you're saying is it should be banned, right?
I'm not sure about that. We think if there is a ban, if you cut this, yellow dies.
Yeah.
So like Alex had a really good suggestion. He's gone. Yeah.
Alex,
don't worry about that. It's probably better off actually. We actually had a suggestion. Alex said Dual Eagle.
Yeah.
Because Dual Eagle does create a lot of toxic game states. It helps like hedge against the strength of the deck, but it doesn't kill yellow as a color.
Yeah.
Of the available cards in the yellow card pool, Dual Eagle is one of the most broken. The interaction between Dual Eagle and Gamboo is insane. And then the other thing is just cutting down on the number of blessed guys it makes the deck less consistent. It means that the deck is more vulnerable to Nexus removal because you can't just ride like Arcana Knight Hex.
Right.
If you cut Paradise, the deck essentially dies because you cannot reliably run a Cathedral for long enough to actually win a game. I think that's one of the major problems that decks had before, like for example Luster, when they weren't running the Phantasmal Paradise engine, they just don't have any way to draw enough cards to continue a game. Exactly. Paradise is the reason why this deck is good. Without it, the deck would die. If you hit Eagle, at least the deck can still function, just probably not in the same form.
Yep. And I will say one game I actually had against White where my opponent was trying to play wide to develop Elephant before I Gambooed. I had Gamboo in hand and he bounced it and I'm just like, oh, okay. Eagle. You got 1 core on everything? Bless. Can't block my whole board. You don't even need Gamboo sometimes. It's crazy. So, go into spells. Of course, we have the staples. 4 shield, you have to play it.
Yeah.
4 prison. Now, I know a lot of people aren't playing as many prison in some decks like Gale. We actually all think that prison, its best home is yellow. We think that prison is actually the best card, the best spell in yellow, because if you turn their board and bless, the game just ends. So it's really tough for them to do anything if you have unblockables and they attack once and you just turn their board and then you heal and damage them. That's the problem. That's why we've been playing Hippo and other decks.
It's impossible to win the race against yellow if they get that. And you really can't even go wider than 3 guys because if you do, you leave yourself vulnerable to exhaustion.
Yeah.
So you go too wide, you get blown out by the removal. You go too tall, you swing in with 1 guy, you get Thorn Prison, then you get hit with the blessed guys. Either you're burning a shield or they're gaining a couple of life.
Thorn Prison also makes Arcana Knight Hex all the more crazy.
Yes.
Like you're just like down your board and your turn, like
you
tap
can
my
draw
guys, draw 2 cards.
So that was actually when you saw Alex and I in game 2 pass like 5 turns. If either one of us had attacked, the other person would just Thorn Prison, bless, draw, and the game would be over. That's why we kept passing because of that card.
Right.
Floodstream actually.
And just a comment, you played 3 of this in your red mid range as well, right?
Yeah, we did. The only reason we didn't play more of that is obviously it's not as strong. We don't have blessed, but we just couldn't fit it. Red has a lot of spells that it needs to play.
Red has all the spells.
Yes.
You want to play Dream Bombs. You want to play Shields. You want to play Prisons. You want to play your 1 break,
Double
Ritual
Heart.
Fires, Double Heart. Honestly, if we could fit suppressions in the main, we probably would.
Yeah.
There's just not enough room for all the spells.
Okay.
It also has a lot more inherent synergy with yellow because of the blessed guys and the hex. Whereas red, the only like real crazy thing you can do off of it is Double Heart.
Yeah.
So next card, and this is something that we changed from before.
Yeah.
Floodstream is just crazy. In the first version of this deck, we actually ended up running Strong Draw. The reason that we ran this is specifically for red, because the thing is, red obviously is our worst matchup. The only way we beat red is we 2-for-1 them. There's going to be points in the game where, like, just due to variance, you have to play a 2 and 3. Like, I played red last tournament. There were a lot of times it's like Camellia Whip and 3-drops were the only cards in my hand. The way I was able to beat my top 4 opponent was game 3. He played a 2 and a 3. I just smashed it, and then now he has no reduction, and he's just playing from behind, and I just keep prisoning and blessing and prisoning and blessing and drawing.
Right.
So this card's really good. It has some other utility in other matchups. So like against Gale, if they play that 4-drop Headshot guy that goes up to 7k, you can Floodstream it, and this beats Imperador as well. So any big vanilla.
Yeah,
and
the other thing
especially
is
Griffin.
there's no because a lot of the deck revolves around Gamboo, just infinite attacks. If your opponent is playing, most of the vanillas that you're able to play are killable by Floodstream, and there's nothing. If you gave a vanilla armor, it just doesn't care. Or it just doesn't interact favorably with Gamboo anymore. So there's no actual counterplay to that synergy of cards in most matchups.
And then if you don't have Gamboo, Alraune is really annoying in Gale. We found that. So we found our win rate went up a lot when we actually included that against Gale. We actually side in the 4-1 into a lot of matchups that will play vanillas or against Alraune. We just need to kill that card, need to kill their vanillas, because if they don't have them, then we just win.
Makes sense.
Next card, obviously, this one's super obvious. I know a lot of people have played less than 4, but you just always play 4. It's yellow. Obviously, Flagellum makes this card insane. It just speaks for itself. It has insane utility. Minus 6k, minus 5k with Flagellum. You can set it against people playing next. It's a staple card,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Spirits.
One of the big things that...
Colin, do you want to kick us off on the spirits?
Oh, sure, spirits. Yeah. So the Carbulk was the one spirit that we ran that was kind of the weakest. It doesn't have Bless. Obviously, it's a vanilla, but it comes up as utility in the mirror to block Gamboo attacks, obviously. And it's also just a Fable Beast. It has the 2 reduction. It's the cheapest Fable Beast. There are times where you just needed a cheap Fable Beast to draw some cards out Paradise, and we found Carbulk was the best.
Additionally with that, like sometimes you have a crazy curve where you can go turn 1 Cathedral and then turn 2 Paradise plus Carbulk, which is crazy.
Yeah, I got that a couple of times.
Yes.
Alex
got that in game 2 of the finals. It very quickly puts you ahead.
Yeah.
So, and there's no other good Fable Beast that you can play in that slot. The other option we were considering was the 2-drop.
Yeah, Marta Bunny.
Marta Bunny, but we expected a bunch of Floodstream, so you'll notice that all of our creatures cost 3 or more.
Yeah.
That's so that Floodstream can never 2.
Yeah.
Next we have Hippocampo. Obviously, it's the best blessed creature that we have outside of Eagle. That is just the most efficient creature. It does everything you need it to, and more. I mean, if you've seen any of the games on stream where over here we have 8, 9 life.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Or you
maybe
played
that'll
in
be
this
the
tournament
modification we
at
need.
all.
Yes,
Yeah.
playmats.
So the
Just
thing
to
is,
increase the life.
everybody's playing Hippo now because it's just like red's playing Hippo, purple's playing Hippo. I've seen some Galists play Hippo.
Gale, definitely. I think the best performing Gale list at Atlanta also ran 3 Hippo on the side. Something like that.
The only way I made purple work at any point was just Hippo, because you can never race yellow, and then you can't outvalue them either. So the problem is Hippo's just a crazy card. I mean, honestly, people are putting it in every deck, and I see why. It's just unbelievable.
It's the only blessed creature that you can hit them if you're going second. You can bless them on turn 1. Every other blessed creature, you can't actually get the blessed trigger on turn 1. So Hippo is just a staple. But that being said, you got the main man himself, the Crocodile.
Controversial.
Controversial.
A lot of people hate on our Crocodile, and I just have to say, I think the results kind of speak for themselves. I'd say this card overperforms in most matchups. Blessed is in general a very strong effect. The stat line on this card is extremely relevant.
Why is it 5K?
Yeah.
Getting to 4 cores for 5k is normally a lot in a lot of situations. Like obviously Hippo hits 4k for 3 cores, a little bit more efficient. Crocodile hitting 5k means that they can't just wall you out with Camellia Whip. It also means that you trade with certain things like Bearded Eagle at 5, and then the Porcupine at level 1. In general, just the number one thing is you want a high density of blessed units. This thing has the Fable Beast tag, it has blessed, 2 most important parts, and it has a respectable stat line too, which makes it really, really strong. If you could play, let's say, 6 Hippos and 6 Eagles, you probably would, but this thing overperforms in almost every game.
The additional 4 blessed guys also makes Hex into an actual reliable drawing.
So, and speaking of Eagle, obviously, we have the next one. The card is just insane. It does everything you need to, as they mentioned earlier. Being able to stop level 1s from blocking is just insane. Like, there are so many times where you're just able to go 2 or 3 wide. They have a bunch of level 1s, whatever it ends up being, and Eagle just gets them all in by himself.
Nice.
Crazy part.
The crazy part about Eagle is like it's 6K, so you just swing it into Dynaman. You're like, what are you gonna do? You want me to draw a card and blast with Hex? All right, cool. Or do you want to trade your Dynaman? Oh, you better have another. I'm just gonna keep going over. And the other thing too is like if you have Cathedral up and you just set up an unblockable board, you're just like, okay, I'll put 3 cores on Cathedral. All right, Hippo 1 core. Oh, you want to give me a trigger? Cool. Clock 2 cores. Oh, you want to give me a trigger? Cool. All right, Eagle. Oh, you want something to die? You don't? Okay, I'll bless. I'll draw 1.
Yeah.
So it's really synergistic with other classes.
Some people don't realize too that the level 2 on this card is deceptively good. It's like you read it and you're just like, oh, whatever. But that level 2 actually comes up a lot more than you would think it would, and it even lets you do things like get over the Dino Man wall with this.
Yep.
He goes up to 7K.
Volcanic Break,
Right. I
Safe.
think that's a huge part of that card's effect, honestly, is being able to pump your guys up. Even 10K is a very common increment you see, so being able to make Gamboo go over other opposing 10Ks is actually pretty powerful.
Yeah, the main blocker that white control will use to try and wall us out is Tankmobile. I think Mark II is its official name.
Yeah, 10K.
10K wall. With Paradise, a single Paradise, and 2 Gamboo, you have 2 unblockable 11Ks that they cannot favorably trade into. Even if they have a 3K power pump, you have Exhaust Nexus, so they can never actually favorably block you, and you're just popping the field every turn until they either die or until they try to kill you.
Right.
Yeah, I think the remarkable thing about this is like it has 3 reduction. So if you have 2 Nexus and a guy, you can pay 2 to play it, which
the same cost as all your
And it's 2
guys.
cores as well.
Most guys cost you 2 cores.
Yeah.
And I think one thing to point out is that as you are red players, as you know, crack card being Apollo Dinos, you can play around pretty efficiently. Have you got a lot of red in Swiss? Like, have you had to dodge some Apollo Dinos?
Yeah, so I played, my loss in top 8 was to red, and then I played 1 other round to red in Swiss. I won my match in Swiss. I think Zach played 3 red.
Yeah, I played 2 or 3 red. I beat everyone but 1, which was the guy I faced in top 4, and then I played 2 red in top cut. I think one of the scariest things funny about Apollo Dinos is like you can level this down, but then it just gets ritual fired. So this is a nice one because they can never hit it with Apollo. This one always gets hit because you're never playing it at 3K. Like you're gonna play it at 5K most times. So like this one just always gets hit. Every single time they had Apollo Dinos, they would just kill us. And then there's another card in the deck that we'll get to, Flagellum. 8K. That's the really tough one. If they have Volcanic Canyon and Apollo-Dinos, you need to get that card through, and if they aren't able to kill it, you win, but if they kill it with Apollo-Dinos, it's over. So,
Gotcha.
Red was definitely our hardest matchup of the tournament, but
and that's why we play this card.
Yeah, we found
What's
some
next?
tech for it, kind of last second, that we ended up throwing in. These 2 Beldegors were our anti-red tech.
What a niche choice, huh?
Yeah, well, we found it's always a card that we wanted to play because we have 12 4 or 5 drops to trigger the Immortal, and it's just honestly one of the strongest cards in the game. I would almost argue that Beldegor would be the strongest card of the game if there wasn't so much anti-enters the battlefield tech.
Really, if it wasn't for Starblast, I think this card would be staple in almost everything.
It would completely warp the format. It would be entirely about Beldegor. But luckily, there are things that counter it. But for yellow, we don't actually run any other when summoned effects, so it's very difficult for our opponents to want to set their Starblast knowing that we only play 2 Beldegor. Like, are they really going to set it on the off chance that we have our 2 Beldegor? Probably not the best play for them, especially because we do apply a lot of pressure, and they're going to have to get rid of it to put a Ice Shield there at some point.
Current red decks are a lot slower too, so they don't have Scorched Battlefield to keep drawing cards, and they're not playing the Ruby Sanctuary to draw cards either, so like all they have is Starblast, so like their guys are very important to them. And so not only are you killing their first guy, but then if they attack into your Hex or your Crocodile, you can bring back Beldegor to kill the attacker that just attacked. So it gains you a lot of value, and they can't really grind you out. That was the problem Red had against Purple a while ago, is they can't get past the Beldegor wall. You're able to not only establish it, but now they have less value options.
Another thing that Alex was doing in testing that wasn't sort of something we expected is if you ever get to the point where red is just at a low life total with not a lot of blockers, you can just run your Beldegor army into them until they die. Beldegor in drop essentially means that any 3-drop they block with, like let's say for example they've got a 6K Dino Man and you've got a 5K Crocodile. Okay, my Crocodile comes in, he dies to the Dino Man, spawns a Beldegor, pops the original blocker, and now I have another attack. If you have enough cores, and certainly in a lot of games you're going to generate enough cores with Cathedral, neutral.
Sure.
You're going to get to the state where you can just, as long as I keep having 4s and 5s, and you can just keep looping this guy over and over and over again for either infinite blockers on defense if I need them, or just infinite attackers on offense.
And actually, building on Daniel's comment, like just speaking of Cathedral, we just like glossed over. It's like I actually think that leaning on this card is like a huge skill test of the deck. I think that like the really good players that play this deck like lean on this card. I think I won most of my matches by leaning on this card. It just, what you do is you create a game state early where you play towards Flagellum or Gamboo, and you're just basically trying to make favorable exchanges and letting Cathedral turn itself on and then run itself as a value engine. And in red, actually, in my top 4 match, he killed this instead of Paradise because it was just giving me way too much value.
And I mean, speaking of Nexuses, we got
Honorary
Nexus, Arcana Knight Hex here.
Oh yeah,
Nexuses 9.
just sits there. Yeah,
Let's just
yeah.
talk about how he's 6K for 3 cores.
It's so annoying.
The man's stat line is insane. He's a scorched battlefield on legs for all of your relevant attackers.
He costs 1 if you have reduction.
Costs 1.
This card's crazy.
This card is
crazy efficient.
unbelievably underrated.
Yes.
Excuse me. Would not play a yellow deck without this card. I think the main strength of playing yellow is that you have 12 different card draw engines. To the point where, like, if you look at purple from previous seasons, they had incidental card draw on like all of their creatures. You play Cavaliers, you play Black Lances, you play like an Assassin. You get a few cards every turn. This deck just says, I'm going to, unless you interact with my Nexuses favorably, I'm going to assemble a board where I'm drawing 4 or 5 cards a turn, and there's nothing you can do about it.
It also helps you against Mulligan plan, because before the Mulligan plan was Mull for Nexus, but if you have Hex and Blessed Guy, you can just opt second, play Hex, play Blessed Guy. And they can't attack you. If they do, okay, cool, I'll take a damage plus draw 1. And then he's also a wall, so it's just incredibly efficient. It allows the deck to actually run consistently and find its other tools so that the engine keeps running.
And I guess we have the man of the hour.
Honestly, probably the strongest card in our deck, or at least one of them.
Favorite yellow card, strongest card easily. It's how we beat red. It's just Raigeki on a stage.
This is a card that I think might have been a mistake. It's hard to say, but it feels like it was a mistake.
Generally, recurring the card Raigeki over and over and over again is not seen favorably by most card games. This card in combination with Exhaust Nexus reads, nuke your board every turn, then add it back.
Yeah, and do it as many times as you want.
There is no number you can sit at outside of maybe 11 or 12k that actually protects you from this card. Once you've gotten to the board state where you have enough reduction, you have enough cores, this card just invalidates 90% of the decks in the format. They can't do anything to interact.
Yeah, even white control decks, like it takes 2 exhausts and you pretty much take the whole board from them. Like it's really
Then the exhausts keep coming back.
Yeah, I want to use the word oppressive here, but like it's just like a very, very unfair card. It gave yellow a form of like end game that they never had before. Like the ability, like before it was like try to sneak through with like God Beast and stuff, but now it's like, oh, I can try to sneak through with a card that we're about to mention, or I can just wipe your entire board and I'll just keep doing that every single turn. So yellow has been given too many effective win conditions, I think, is one of the biggest issues.
Yeah.
Sometimes even living Thorn Prison can be crazy. Like you're like, Thorn Prison, I'll attack, get it back, I still have it.
Yeah.
Especially in the mirror in like a low resource game where both of you are relying on Cathedral. Let's say neither of you saw Paradise. Being able to go Flagellum, Thorn Prison, both your guys, you're not going to get to block and draw cards. I'm going to leave my blockers up so I can draw cards on defense, and then I'm going to keep swinging in and dealing damage for free. There are board states like that, not just in versus yellow, but in general, where the fact that you can loop one of the strongest spells in the game, Thorn Prison, just means that you always pop their shields and you never have to worry about it on your end.
I think one of the big things that like every time I beat red, it was basically attack with one guy, Thorn Prison your board, play Flagellum, swing her through so Andromeda can't confront on their refresh. And then now my Flagellum's through my cores refresh, next turn, attack, wipe your board. And they can't block it either. Even if you only have one Exhaust Nexus, Andromeda goes down to 5k. If they block you, it dies. And then the other thing about it, it's 8k, Trident Dragon can't kill it. So if you get it through, it's safe against everything but Apollo. So my win condition against red was literally just get that through. And they have to see 2 4-ups in order to beat it and have the cores for it. And then sometimes you can just Floodstream and play another one. So I always try to play it after their first Apollo if possible, but you can't always do that. So it's just crazy card.
Flag is insane. It's a very, very good card that gives you inevitability in the late game. As does the namesake of the deck, Gamboo here.
This card was the reason why we tried yellow in Utrecht. This without Gamboo, this deck would not be as good versus the majority of the field. As a matter of fact, you will see most decks in the top cut and also in like top 16 are playing vanillas in decks that normally wouldn't play them just to make sure they have an answer to a Gamboo unblockable attack. If you look at the Utrecht event, the Gale decks there had not moved into the, I think it's, was it Pinecone? No, Porcupine. They hadn't moved into Porcupines yet. So Gamboo in that tournament just read, one of my guys pops your shield every turn. So people have adapted around it. It's still one of the most strongest one of the most strong attackers we have. And it interacts with board states in a way that most cards in other decks can't. What we saw in set 2 was that a lot of effects that deal damage outside of combat were really relevant. Stuff like Elk, stuff like Maduke. This thing still deals damage in combat, but it invalidates almost all of your blockers. And then any of your vanillas that you are playing, either we can floodstream them or we can just run over them with the power of either buffing up my Paradise or having just natural good stat lines into it.
And funny enough, some of the ways we actually got around like the Nova decks was just like, play my Gamboo, unblockable, heal. Oh, you attack Nova? All right, kill my Gamboo. Okay, play another Gamboo, attack, heal, get through your stuff. All right, kill my Gamboo, I'm still preserving my board ability. So Gamboo's just a crazy card. I mean, the stat line on it is wild. 4 cores for 10k is crazy. So you can just hold it up as a blocker, which we'll do often, and they can't get through, and you're doing unblockables. It's just really ridiculous.
The second effect's crazy too.
Yes, the
so they just
reset
have to
effect
shield
is
it.
extremely important.
Especially because it
Gamboo-
sees itself dying as
Yeah.
well, right? So
Yeah, targeting 2 Gamboos is crazy because none of their vanillas can block anything.
Yeah.
Like, it just pretty much puts them out of the game
Yeah.
for the most part.
this is the deck. Again, congrats. We have a side. Ryan, do you want to talk about the side?
Yeah, go nuts, man.
Okay, sure.
So I'm gonna do this right along the side.
Okay, so I guess one thing, the big spice, I suppose, of the sideboard is 3 Michaela.
Why Michaela?
So it's really good in the mirror. Against the yellow mirror, we essentially get to turn into like a Luster deck, which Luster Luster has a good matchup into the normal Fabled Beast deck, and this kind of lets us go toe-to-toe with them, or just win the Fabled Beast mirror outright. Just being able to use it in combination with Flagellum, with Exhaust Nexus, this gives you a bunch of card advantage, and like even if you're like losing on the like Nexus race, this gives you a way to win the game even from behind. Like this is the best way to win a game from behind, even when you should be losing to like double Paradise or something.
Sure.
Yeah.
Another thing worth mentioning about Michaela is that like what happens is like you get into this kind of like degenerate race to double Nexus, and so all you're trying to do with that card is just dig to double Nexus, dig to double Nexus. And if you were able to establish a Flagellum and you already paid for the cores with that, like now everything's free. So like it's incredibly impressive. They just can't get around it. We also check it into white sometimes, so it depends on the white deck. But obviously that's another win count against white. So there were 2 times actually that I typed it into white to try to use that to beat white. It's just a crazy card, and we just transformed the sideboard into Luster for it.
Yeah, a good example if you want to see what Michaela can do is watch the finals match. Like, you'll see why Michaela is important.
That was wild.
Yeah. Next card is 2 Dream Bomb. This is really good. It's really important in the mirror, and it's also good against white, of course. But in the mirror, it's really important because you want to be able to bounce their Flagellums and interrupt their Luster looping. That's probably the most important thing about it, but it also has its uses against white.
Sure.
Works
It's a
against
good
Nova,
card.
too.
Yeah.
We cited it. It was really important versus Nova because the Nova deck that wasn't top 8 of this event did not have Big Bang energy, so it can't really replay Nova. So like Dream Bombing it was almost as like good as just killing it. So it had other niche uses against Red. You even cited in sometimes because the tempo you can get if they go like Canyon, Dino Man, a dude that attacks, and you're just like, okay, I'll flip the Dream Bomb, I'll eat your Dino Man that's going to stay up to block, I'll eat your Nexus, now my Blessed Guys hit you, and you have to spend the whole turn to redevelop that stuff because you don't have any reduction. So that was also a big upside.
Yeah, it's also there for, of course, Fang Long. You just can't let that thing hit you. Even if you need to sack your board to do it, that's a
you
good
gotta
option.
do
And
it.
then tangential uses, we don't bring it in for this, but against red decks that are running Nova or something like that, if they're still keeping in double heart post board, it can prevent you getting lethal too.
Of course.
It's just kind of a good catch-all. Whatever the situation, Dream Bomb's got you covered.
We wanted to main it, we just didn't have the space.
Yeah, we tried.
The main is very clean, and there isn't really much that we could change there. So
So now we got some spice.
Yeah. spice, I guess. It's another tech option, I suppose, is a 2 Starblast draw.
Yeah.
Funny enough, mostly for red, actually. It turns out just playing like turn 1, draw 2 is just really good against red.
Yeah.
Yeah, Daniel should probably
Yeah,
talk to us
so
about it.
for the most part in testing, the first 10 games I played with this, I think I ripped Starblast turn 1 4 or 5 times, won all but one of them. So I was convinced off that this card is just good enough to play against red just as a draw 2. Also, incidentally, you can sometimes just win the game by setting it and drawing 4 off of a Dragno King or a Nebula. That was how I sniped one of my games in top 8 before I lost. I also sniped, lucky for us, there were a lot of players playing Smag at this event, and there was a game in Swiss where I look at my opener, which is 3 dead cards and a Starblast draw, going first, and I just go, okay, snap keep, set my Starblast, you're going to pass turn until you give me 4 cards. And he passed. I passed turn 1. He passed turn 1. I passed turn 2. He has to give me a play on, or he plays a win summon on turn 2. I draw 4 cards. I'm in the driver's seat from that point on.
And another thing, Ulysses had Harpy and Palace for board control, and it's like, first off, unless they play vanillas, we probably just win unless they combo us 3 times. But in general, if we're able to resolve 1 Starblast against them, our win rate spikes so much that it's pretty much unlosable for us. And so now we don't have to do anything against them other than just say set Starblast draw, we're going to do it eventually, and then you lose. So it's just a nice another hedge. Like, you can even bring it into white matchups if you think they're going to play Aegis and you need some sort of card advantage. It's kind of harder to bring in there, but it's nice against Gale too if you have the slots for it, because obviously they're just going to be Beldegor looping. So there's a lot of utility in it. It actually found its way into a lot of matchups, and I won a lot of my red matchups just off the back of Starblast draw, especially because they didn't see it game 1, and it's likely for you to be setting a burst early if you want to condition them. So then cool, all this time it's Starblast draw.
Of course.
Against Alrune, you also get to draw 4. So against Gale, you're actually drawing 4 off of it a lot of the time.
Yes.
Yeah. And then
That's why I don't play Alrune.
yeah. And then we have one more Beldegor for the red matchup. Pretty much same. We just wanted another one to bring in against red.
It
Just
fixes some sideboarding numbers. Yeah. We wanted certain cards out, certain cards in. We just wanted one more Beldegor in that specific match.
I also played purple in pools, and I typed it into purple because, like, the thing is, you just don't have that much reduction in purple. You guys are expensive. Like, if I'm able to Beldegor your Dragonhog Assassin, which is your early value engine, it's just really nice. You're also able to use it to just loop so that they can never get through. It's just a really nice, valuable, efficient card, but mostly for red.
and while we're on the anti-red cards, one more flood stream.
Yeah.
Yeah, just same reasoning as
Yeah, we just hit a point with Floodstream where we just say if we have an increased quantity of it, there will be statistically some percentage of games that are won straight right off the back of killing 2 guys.
Yeah.
And we found that, like, when we resolved the Floodstream, we were winning like 60 to 70% of those games.
And the last card is one of Ryute. It's really good in the mirror and against white. In the mirror, it's really important because there's a big mini game about bouncing Flagellum when they're trying to do their Exhaust Nexus Luster stuff, and this stops your Flagellum from being dream bombed in the middle of it.
Yep.
And against white, it's pretty self-explanatory.
It's also a Fable Beast, so
Yeah, being a Fable Beast is wonderful because it synergizes with Paradise. The other thing is, we weren't thinking that Nova was going to be a significant factor at this event, but randomly turning off Nova with your 1 copy of Ryute is probably one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen from a single sideboard card.
Turns off Aegis as well, right?
Yes, it does turn off Aegis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Versus white is
Yeah.
it turns off Aegis, it turns off Dream Bomb. Its biggest downside, honestly, is just that it dies to Floodstream, but it's a lot of mana for them to, like, you're playing at the turn you're going for it, so it's a lot of mana for them to be able to Floodstream it and then also Dream Bomb you. So it ends up being like at least 8 mana, the cheapest 8 mana. So it worked out well. I don't regret siding him. I almost wish I had sided another one of him, to be honest.
Yeah, actually, I want to.
There were a lot of tech options. Like, we wanted one more Ryute. We wanted a 4th Beldegor at one point. We wanted a lot of stuff that we just couldn't fit because there's so few cards that we're able to make room. Like, the engine for the deck is already something like 40 cards. You really can't afford to do anything more than, like, the bare minimum of tech cards and then as many as you can fit in the sideboard.
Awesome.
Yeah, another thing that's cool is, like, so in some games on the Gamboo turn, you're like, oh, you're going to bounce my guy in white with Gamboo? Ryute. I mean, the biggest thing is just obviously Flagellum. You can't let that get bounced on your first Exhaust Nexus or you lose it, and you need to keep your Exhaust Nexus pair. So that's actually one of our lose cons against white, is just them bouncing it. Like, sometimes if we don't have that card, we'll actually try to wait to play this with the Exhaust Nexus just so that they can burn through their green bombs.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, guys. I don't remember if I said the names, but Dan,
Ryan Matas, Colin.
You know who the fuck I am.
Zack attack
awesome. And using your words, this deck
is crazy!